Marcus Chen wiped the grease from his hands with a torn rag that had seen better days. The small repair shop on the outer rim of Station Epsilon was barely holding together, much like everything else in his life. The walls were stained with years of oil and coolant leaks, and the lighting fixtures flickered intermittently, casting dancing shadows across the cluttered workspace. He looked at the invoice in his hand and sighed. Another customer who couldn't pay in full. The Terran colonies on the frontier were struggling, and honest work was becoming harder to find. Pirates, corporate exploitation, and the constant threat of alien raids had left most human settlements barely scraping by. Marcus had been running Chen's repairs for 3 years now, ever since his father died in a mining accident on Kepler 442b. The shop was all he had left of his family legacy, but the debt collectors were circling like vultures. Without a major breakthrough soon, he'd lose everything. The bell above the shop door chimed, a sound that should have brought hope but lately only brought more problems. Marcus looked up to see 2 figures stumbling through the entrance, and his breath caught in his throat. They were aliens. Not the usual variety he occasionally saw on the trading posts, but something entirely different. Tall, elegant beings with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Their features were humanoid but refined, with large violet eyes and silver hair that moved as if underwater. Despite their otherworldly beauty, they looked desperate and afraid. The taller of the 2 was supporting her companion, who appeared injured. Both wore clothing that spoke of wealth and status, even though it was now torn and stained with something that looked suspiciously like blood. Purple blood. Please, the injured one said in heavily accented galactic standard, we need help. Our ship, it crashed. Marcus set down his tools and approached cautiously. He'd heard stories of alien scams, but the fear in their eyes seemed genuine. The injured one was favoring her left side, and he could see a nasty gash along her arm that was definitely bleeding. I'm not a doctor, Marcus said carefully. This is just a repair shop. Not for us, the taller one replied. Our ship. It needs repairs. We can pay well. She reached into her clothing and produced a small pouch that clinked with the unmistakable sound of credits. Real credits, not the script that most frontier settlements used. Marcus's eyes widened. What kind of ship are we talking about? Imperial transport, the injured one whispered. Small, but advanced. It's hidden in the canyon about 5 kilometers from here. Imperial. That word sent a chill down Marcus's spine. The galaxy was full of empires and federations, most of them looking down on humanity as a primitive species barely worthy of notice. Getting involved with imperial politics was usually a good way to end up dead or worse. But those credits. Let me get some basic medical supplies first, Marcus said, making his decision. Then, we'll take a look at your ship. He led them to the small back room he used for breaks and found his emergency medical kit. It wasn't much, but it had basic antiseptics and bandages. As he cleaned the injured alien's wound, he learned their names. The injured one was Lyra, and her protector was Zara. They were sisters, though they looked similar enough that Marcus might have guessed that even without being told. As he worked, they told him their story in hushed, urgent tones. They were members of the Etherian royal family, daughters of a duke who served the Etherian emperor. Their homeworld was in the midst of a civil war, with various noble houses fighting for control while the emperor grew old and weak. Their father had sent them away for their protection, but their escort had been ambushed by forces loyal to their uncle, Duke Vex, who wanted them captured or killed to strengthen his claim to the throne. Vex believes that eliminating the direct bloodline will give him legitimacy, Zara explained as Marcus finished bandaging her sister's arm. We're the last of our line except for our father. And your father can't protect you? Lyra shook her head weakly. He's fighting a war on 3 fronts. He sent us with his most trusted guards, but they're all dead now. We barely escaped in an emergency pod. Marcus finished the bandaging and sat back. The story sounded like something out of a Hollywood, but the genuine fear in their voices convinced him it was real. And if they really were Etherian nobility, how much are we talking about for the repairs? He asked. Zara poured the contents of the pouch onto the table. Marcus's eyes widened as he counted at least 50,000 credits in various denominations. More money than he'd seen in his entire life. "This is just a down payment," Zara said. "If you can get us off this world safely, there will be much more. My father is wealthy, and he values our lives highly." Marcus picked up one of the credit chips and examined it. It was real, and it was worth more than his shop made in a year. But something nagged at him. "Why come to me? There are bigger shops, better mechanics. This is just a small operation." "Because," Lyra said quietly, "humans have a reputation. You're resourceful, innovative, and, most importantly, you're not part of the noble house's games. No one would expect us to trust a human mechanic." That stung a little, but Marcus understood. Humanity was seen as the galaxy's handyman. Good with tools and machinery, but not sophisticated enough for high politics. Usually, that was a disadvantage. Today, it might save his life and theirs. "All right," Marcus said, standing up. "Let's go take a look at this ship of yours." The journey to the canyon took them through some rough terrain. Marcus's old ground vehicle wheezed and complained, but it got them there. The ship was hidden under an optical camouflage net in a narrow ravine, invisible from above but accessible from the ground. When Marcus saw it, he whistled low. The ship was unlike anything he'd ever worked on. It was sleek and organic-looking, as if it had been grown rather than built. The hull was made of some kind of metamaterial that seemed to shift color depending on the angle of view. Even damaged, it was beautiful. But it was definitely damaged. Scorch marks along the port side told the story of weapons fire, and one of the engine nacelles was completely destroyed. Worse, the main power coupling had been severed, leaving the ship dead in space when it crashed. "This is going to take some work," Marcus said, running his hands over the damaged sections. "I'll need parts, specialized tools. Some of this technology is way beyond anything I've worked with." "But, you can fix it?" Zara asked anxiously. Marcus studied the ship more carefully. The basic principles seemed similar to human technology, just far more advanced. Like comparing a fusion reactor to a campfire, but the fundamental physics were the same. "I think so. But it'll take time. Maybe a week, possibly 2. "We don't have 2 weeks," Lyra said urgently. "Vex forces will be looking for us. This world won't stay safe long." "Then, we make it 1 week," Marcus decided. "But I'll need help. And I'll need access to parts that aren't exactly legal on the frontier." He was thinking of Jack Morrison, a smuggler who occasionally brought rare components through the sector. Jack owed him a favor from when Marcus had fixed his ship's quantum drive without asking questions about why it was covered in plasma burns. "Whatever it costs," Zara said firmly. "We'll pay." Marcus nodded and activated his portable comm unit. "Jack? It's Marcus. I need a favor. A big one." Jack's gruff voice crackled through the speaker. "Marcus, my boy. What kind of trouble are you in now?" "The profitable kind. Can you get me Ethereum-grade power couplings and some quantum flux capacitors? High-end stuff." There was a pause. "Ethereum? That's military-grade hardware, Marcus. Very illegal, very expensive. What the hell are you working on?" "Something that could set us both up for life." "Are you in?" Another pause, longer this time. "I'll be there in 36 hours. This better be worth it." Marcus closed the comm and turned to the sisters. "We've got 36 hours to do what prep work we can. After that, it's a race against time." They spent the rest of the day cataloging damage and planning repairs. Marcus was amazed by the ship's construction. Every component was a work of art, engineered to tolerances that human technology couldn't even measure properly. But the underlying principles were comprehensible, and that gave him hope. As the local sun set, painting the canyon walls in shades of orange and red, Marcus set up a small camp near the ship. The sisters huddled together, still clearly shaken by their ordeal. "Why are you helping us?" Lyra asked as Marcus distributed ration packs. "You don't know us. For all you know, we could be criminals." Marcus thought about that while he chewed on the tasteless protein bar. "Maybe you are. But, you came to me for help, and you're paying fairly for it. That's more honest than most of my customers." He paused, watching the first stars appear in the darkening sky. "Besides, everyone deserves a chance to go home." Zara looked at him curiously. "You speak as if you know what it's like to be far from home." "I do. My family came out here from Earth when I was a kid. Pioneers, looking for a better life on the frontier. My parents died in an accident 5 years ago, and I've been alone ever since. I know what it's like to need help and have nowhere to turn." The sisters exchanged a look. "We're sorry for your loss," Lyra said softly. "It's in the past. Right now, we need to focus on the future." "Your future, specifically." They talked late into the night, and Marcus learned more about Etherian culture and politics. The empire was vast, spanning dozens of star systems, but it was fracturing. The current emperor was dying, and succession was unclear. Various noble houses were positioning themselves for a power grab, with Duke Vex being one of the most ruthless. "Our father is one of the few who still believes in the old ways," Zara explained. "Honor, duty, protection of the weak. Vex sees such ideals as weakness. If Vex wins, he'll plunge the empire into darkness," Lyra added. "He's already allied himself with the Void Syndicate." Marcus had heard of the Void Syndicate. Pirates, slavers, and worse. They were one of the reasons human settlements on the frontier lived in constant fear. "All the more reason to get you home safely," Marcus said. Jack Morrison arrived right on schedule, his battered smuggling vessel touching down in a cloud of dust and recycled atmosphere. Jack himself was a large, bearded man who looked like he'd been carved from asteroid rock, but he had a reputation for reliability and discretion. "Marcus," he boomed, emerging from his ship with a grav sled loaded with components. "You look like hell, boy. When was the last time you had a proper meal? When was the last time you had a proper bath?" Marcus shot back, grinning despite everything. Jack laughed and looked around the canyon. "So where's this mysterious project of yours?" Marcus led him to the hidden ship. Jack's expression grew serious as he took in the sleek alien design. "Holy hell, Marcus. That's Etherian. Imperial Navy, unless I miss my guess. How did you get your hands on this? It's complicated. Can you help fix it?" Jack walked around the ship, his trained smuggler's eye taking in the damage. "It's definitely possible. These parts one brought should do the trick. But, Marcus, if this ship belongs to the Etherian military, having it could get us both executed." "It doesn't belong to the military," Zara said, stepping out from behind the ship. "It belongs to us." Jack's eyes widened as he took in the two sisters. "Well, I'll be damned. Actual Etherian nobility. No wonder you need it fixed quietly." Marcus made introductions, and Jack proved surprisingly diplomatic in dealing with the sisters. Apparently, smugglers learn to be polite to valuable customers regardless of their species. "These parts will do nicely," Jack said, examining the ship's damaged systems. "But, the labor is going to be tricky. Some of these connections require micro-welding that's beyond my skills." "That's what I'm for," Marcus said. "I've been studying the ship's design. I think I can adapt our techniques to work with their technology." What followed was 3 days of the most intense work of Marcus's life. The Etherian ship's systems were incredibly complex, but they followed logical patterns once he understood the underlying principles. Jack provided expert knowledge of advanced components, while the sisters served as interpreters for the ship's technical documentation, which was written in flowing Etherian script. The power coupling replacement was the biggest challenge. The original component was a crystalline matrix that channeled exotic energy in ways that human science barely understood. Marcus had to completely rebuild the connection interfaces using human-compatible components while maintaining the energy flow characteristics. It's like trying to connect a wooden water wheel to a fusion reactor, he muttered as he worked. Actually, it's more like connecting a quantum computer to a biological neural network, Lyra corrected. She had proven surprisingly knowledgeable about engineering principles. The energy isn't just electrical. It's partially psionic. That stopped Marcus cold. Psionic? As in, mental energy? Etherian technology is biomechanical, Zara explained. Our ships respond to their pilots' thoughts and emotions. It's part of why they're so efficient. Marcus stared at the components in his hands. No wonder this was so difficult. He was trying to repair a machine that was partially alive. Can you interface with it? He asked. Lyra nodded. If you can get the basic power flowing, I can help calibrate the psionic components. It took 2 more days, but they finally got the ship operational. The moment power flowed through the restored systems, the ship seemed to come alive. Lights pulsed in organic patterns, and Marcus could swear he heard something like a heartbeat coming from the engine core. She's beautiful, Lyra whispered, placing her hand on a control panel. The ship's lights brightened in response. We should test the engines, Marcus said. Make sure everything is stable before you try to leave. But, before they could run the tests, Jack's portable scanner started screaming warnings. Ships incoming, he announced grimly. Multiple contacts, moving fast. Marcus felt his blood run cold as he looked at the scanner display. 6 ships, definitely military configuration, heading straight for their position. Vex found us, Zara said quietly. The canyon that had hidden them was about to become a trap. Marcus looked at the Etherian ship, then at Jack's smuggling vessel, then at the approaching enemy contacts. How long until they get here? He asked. Maybe 10 minutes, Jack replied. Is your ship ready? Marcus asked the sisters. The engines are online, but we haven't tested the flight systems, Lyra said. There could be problems. There definitely will be problems if we stay here. Marcus made his decision. Jack, can your ship provide cover fire? Against 6 military vessels? Not for long. Long enough for them to escape? Jack studied the scanner again and nodded reluctantly. Maybe. If we're lucky and they're not expecting resistance. Marcus turned to the sisters. Get your ship ready to fly. As soon as Jack engages, you run for orbit and jump to hyperspace. What about you? Zara asked. I'll go with Jack. We'll try to delay them long enough for you to escape. No. Lyra's voice was firm. You've done too much already. We won't let you sacrifice yourself for us. This isn't a discussion, Marcus said. Those ships are here for you, not us. If you stay, we all die. If you go, at least some of us have a chance. The sound of engines grew louder. They were out of time. Go, Marcus said firmly. That's an order from your mechanic. Zara looked like she wanted to argue, but Lyra grabbed her arm. He's right. We have to go. The sisters rushed to their ship as Jack and Marcus ran for the smuggling vessel. Within moments, both ships were powered up and ready. Remember, Jack said over the comm, we're buying time, not trying to win a war. Understood. The enemy ships appeared over the canyon rim just as the Etherian vessel began to rise. Jack's ship emerged from concealment, weapons blazing. The surprise attack caught the lead enemy ship off guard, and it spiraled away with damage to its port engine. But the other 5 ships quickly recovered and returned fire. Jack's ship shuddered under the impact of energy bolts, and alarms began screaming. Shields down to 60%. Jack shouted over the noise. Marcus watched the scanner as the Etherian ship climbed toward orbit, moving faster than anything its size had a right to. The psionic interface was definitely working. They're almost clear, he reported. 2 of the enemy ships broke off to pursue the escaping vessel, but the remaining 3 concentrated their fire on Jack's ship. The smuggling vessel was tough, but it wasn't a warship. Shields at 30%. We need to get out of here. Wait, Marcus said, watching the scanner. Almost, now. They've jumped to hyperspace. Jack immediately threw his ship into evasive maneuvers, weaving between the canyon walls as enemy fire lit up the rocks around them. They made it to open space, but the enemy ships were faster and closing quickly. Where to? Jack asked. Anywhere but here. Jack activated his own jump drive, and the stars elongated into lines as they escaped into hyperspace. Behind them, the enemy ships could only watch helplessly as their quarry disappeared. In the relative safety of hyperspace, Marcus finally allowed himself to breathe. They had done it. Against all odds, they had saved the Etherean princesses and lived to tell about it. Think we'll ever see them again? Jack asked. Marcus looked at the credit chips the sisters had given him, more money than he'd ever had in his life. Enough to pay off his debts, upgrade his shop, maybe even buy a better location. Probably not, he said. They're going back to their war, and I'm just a human mechanic on the frontier. But, as he settled back in his seat for the long journey home, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much larger. The galaxy was a big place, full of surprises. And, sometimes, those surprises came looking for a struggling human mechanic who was willing to help strangers in need. 6 months had passed since Marcus Chen's life changed forever. The credits from the Etherean sisters had transformed his small repair shop into something respectable. New equipment hummed quietly in the expanded workspace, and, for the first time in years, he wasn't worried about making rent. But, success brought its own problems. Word had spread through the frontier about the human mechanic who could work miracles with alien technology. Ships from a dozen different species now docked at Station Epsilon specifically to seek his services. Marcus had hired 2 assistants and was considering a third. He was calibrating a Saurian fusion matrix when his new receptionist, Sarah, called from the front office. Marcus, you need to see this. There's a ship requesting permission to dock, and their credentials are unusual. Marcus set down his tools and walked to the front of the shop. Through the viewport, he could see a massive vessel approaching the station. It wasn't like anything in the local traffic patterns. The ship was enormous, easily 10 times larger than anything that usually visited Epsilon, and its design was unmistakably Etherean. But this wasn't a simple transport or merchant vessel. The sleek hull was decorated with ceremonial markings, and escort fighters flanked it in perfect formation. Marcus had seen ships like this before, but only in historical documentaries. That's an Imperial dreadnought, he said quietly. Sarah's eyes widened. Imperial? As in Etherean Empire Imperial? Before Marcus could answer, his personal communicator chimed with an incoming message. The holographic display showed the imperial seal of the Etherean Empire, and the message was brief but formal. Marcus Chen of Earth, your presence is requested aboard the imperial vessel Starfall. A shuttle will arrive to transport you within the hour. This request comes by direct order of His Imperial Majesty. Marcus stared at the message, his mind racing. The Emperor himself wanted to see him? That couldn't be good. Emperors didn't personally summon mechanics unless something very important was happening. Sarah, cancel all my appointments for the rest of the day. Maybe the rest of the week. What should I tell people? Tell them I've been called away on urgent business. Don't mention the Empire. Marcus quickly gathered a few essential tools and changed into his least greasy jumpsuit. An hour later, an elegant Etherean shuttle docked with the station, and 2 ceremonially dressed guards escorted him aboard. The interior of the shuttle was as beautiful as he remembered from the sister's ship, but larger and more ornate. Every surface seemed to glow with inner light, and the seats were clearly designed for comfort during long journeys. The flight to the dreadnought took only a few minutes, but it felt like hours. Marcus tried to prepare himself for whatever was coming, but dealing with imperial politics was far beyond his experience. The docking bay of the Starfall was larger than most space stations Marcus had visited. Hundreds of crew members went about their duties with military precision, and the air hummed with barely contained energy. Everything about the ship spoke of vast power and ancient authority. His escorts led him through corridors lined with historical tapestries depicting great Etherian victories. Some of the battles shown were against enemies Marcus didn't recognize, but others were clearly against human forces from the early days of galactic expansion. They finally arrived at a set of ornate doors that opened to reveal a spacious audience chamber. At the far end, on a throne that seemed to be carved from a single massive crystal, sat the Emperor of the Etherian Empire. Emperor Valdris looked exactly as Marcus had imagined from historical records, but older and more frail. His pale blue skin had taken on an almost translucent quality, and his violet eyes seemed dim with exhaustion. But, when he spoke, his voice still carried the authority of absolute power. Marcus Chen of Earth, approach. Marcus walked forward, trying not to gawk at the splendor surrounding him. The throne room was easily the size of a cathedral, with crystalline pillars reaching toward a ceiling that displayed a real-time view of the stars outside. Your Majesty, Marcus said, unsure of proper protocol. Should he bow? Kneel? Salute? You may stand normally, the Emperor said, apparently reading his confusion. Human customs are acceptable here. I'm honored by your summons, Your Majesty, but I have to ask why you wanted to see me. Emperor Valdris smiled, and, for a moment he looked less like an all-powerful ruler and more like a tired grandfather. Because, Marcus Chen, you saved my granddaughters' lives. And, in doing so, you may have saved the Empire itself. Marcus felt the bottom drop out of his stomach. Granddaughters? Lyra and Zara are my son's children, yes. Duke Koran is my eldest son and heir. When his daughters disappeared during the evacuation from Etherion Prime, we feared the worst. Vex forces had been targeting royal family members, and we had no word from their escort. The Emperor stood from his throne, moving with careful dignity despite his obvious frailty. Then, 6 months ago, a badly damaged ship appeared in our space carrying my granddaughters and an incredible story. A human mechanic had risked his life to repair their ship and help them escape. Marcus tried to process this information. I just did what anyone would do. They needed help. Did you? Let me tell you what anyone else did when faced with similar situations. The Emperor's voice hardened. 3 separate noble houses knew of attacks on royal family members and did nothing. 2 military commanders ignored distress calls because they didn't want to risk their careers. And one of my own admirals actually helped coordinate attacks against evacuation ships. He walked closer to Marcus, his eyes blazing with an intensity that reminded him forcefully that this frail-looking being commanded the loyalty of billions. But a human mechanic on a frontier station risked everything to save 2 alien strangers. Do you understand why that might interest me? Marcus was beginning to get an uncomfortable feeling about where this conversation was heading. Your Majesty, I'm just a mechanic. I don't know anything about politics or war. Perhaps. But you know about loyalty, and honor, and doing what's right even when it's dangerous. Those qualities are apparently rarer in my empire than I thought. Before Marcus could respond, the chamber doors opened and familiar figures entered. Lyra and Zara looked much better than the last time he'd seen them, dressed in elegant court clothing and moving with the confidence of royalty. But their faces lit up with genuine pleasure when they saw him. Marcus! Lyra rushed forward, ignoring protocol to embrace him. We weren't sure you'd come. Wasn't aware I had a choice, Marcus replied, hugging her back. Though I'm glad to see you both made it home safely. Zara joined the embrace, and, for a moment Marcus felt like he was reuniting with family rather than meeting alien royalty. We told grandfather everything, Zara said. About how you helped us, how you risked your life for strangers. We also told him about your skills, Lyra added. You understood our technology better than most Etherian engineers. Grandfather has a proposition for you. Marcus looked between the sisters and the Emperor, who was watching the reunion with obvious affection. What kind of proposition? Emperor Valdris returned to his throne, but his posture was more relaxed now.
The Empire is fracturing, Marcus Chen.
My brother Vex has declared himself regent, claiming that my age makes me unfit to rule. He controls nearly a third of our territory, and more systems join him daily. I'm sorry to hear that, Your Majesty, but I don't see how I can help with civil war.
Can't you? You've already helped more than you know.
When my granddaughters returned with their story, it reminded our people that honor and loyalty still exist. Their escape became a symbol of hope.
Lyra stepped forward. The problem is bigger than just the civil war, Marcus.
Vex has made allies with forces outside the Empire. The Void Syndicate, the hegemony of Crix, even some human criminal organizations. He's promising them territory and slaves in exchange for military support, Zara added grimly.
If he wins, it won't just be the end of our empire. It'll be the beginning of a dark age for this entire region of the galaxy.
Marcus was quiet for a long moment, thinking. He'd heard rumors about increased pirate activity, more aggressive raids on human settlements. If those were connected to this civil war.
What exactly are you asking me to do?
Join us, the Emperor said simply. Not as a soldier, but as an advisor. Someone who understands both human and alien technology. Someone who can help us find innovative solutions to impossible problems.
Become your mechanic?
Become my friend, the Emperor replied.
I have advisors and generals and engineers.
What I need is someone who thinks differently, who isn't bound by the assumptions that limit my people. Marcus looked at the sisters, who were watching him with hopeful expressions.
What would this involve?
Travel, mostly, Lyra explained.
The Emperor's forces are scattered across dozens of systems.
Ships need repair, new technologies need to be developed, supply lines need to be maintained. And, occasionally, Zara added, impossible problems need creative solutions.
Like repairing an Imperial transport with human components? Exactly like that.
Marcus thought about his shop back on Station Epsilon. Sarah and his other assistants could handle the day-to-day operations. He'd built something stable there, something that would survive without him for a while. But this was bigger than his small business. If the Emperor was right, if Vex's victory would bring chaos to the galaxy, then every human settlement was at risk.
Including the one he called home.
If I agree to this, what guarantee do I have that I won't just be a token human in your court?
Someone you parade around to show how inclusive you are? The Emperor's laugh was genuine. Marcus Chen, I have met thousands of people in my long life. Politicians, warriors, scientists, artists. Most of them tell me what they think I want to hear.
In the past 10 minutes, you've challenged me, questioned me, and demanded assurances.
You're clearly not token material. Lyra grinned.
Besides, we've already seen you work.
Remember the psionic coupling problem?
You solved that in hours when our best engineers said it would take weeks. That was just applied physics.
Applied human physics, Zara corrected. We think in straight lines because our technology evolved that way.
You think in spirals and curves because you're used to making incompatible systems work together.
Marcus realized they had a point.
Human technology was famous throughout the galaxy for being adaptable and modular. It had to be, because humanity was always playing catch-up with more advanced species. That disadvantage had become a strength. What about payment? He asked, partly because he was curious and partly to buy time to think. Generous, the Emperor said dryly. Plus full diplomatic status, access to Imperial technology databases, and the eternal gratitude of the royal family.
And if your side loses?
Then, we all die together, the Emperor said matter-of-factly.
Vex doesn't believe in leaving loose ends. Marcus took a deep breath and made his decision. All right. I'll help. But I have conditions. Name them. First, my people on Station Epsilon get protection. If Vex's allies come after them because of my involvement, I want them evacuated to safety. Agreed. Second, I want regular communication with human authorities. If this conflict spreads to human space, they need to know what they're facing. also agreed. Third, if I say something is impossible or too dangerous, that's the end of the discussion.
No pressure, no royal commands.
The emperor considered this for a moment.
That condition troubles me, not because I disagree with it, but because it suggests you expect me to ask impossible things of you. Your Majesty, with respect, you just asked a human mechanic to help save an interstellar empire.
That should have been impossible. Point taken. Agreed.
Marcus looked around the magnificent throne room one more time, then, at the sisters who had started this entire adventure.
Then, I guess I'm your new advisor.
The next few hours were a whirlwind of briefings, introductions, and logistics. Marcus met the Emperor's senior staff, toured the ship's technical sections, and received classified briefings on the current state of the war. The situation was worse than he'd imagined. Vex controlled not just a third of Etherian territory, but the most industrialized worlds. His forces were better equipped and supplied, and his alien allies brought technologies that the Imperial forces struggled to counter. "We're fighting a defensive war," explained Admiral Theron, the Emperor's chief military advisor. "Every engagement costs us ships and crews we can't replace."
"What about new construction?" Marcus asked. "Limited by raw materials. Vex controls the primary mining worlds." Marcus studied the tactical displays showing Etherian space.
The Empire's territory was scattered, with loyalist worlds forming isolated pockets surrounded by hostile or neutral systems. "You need a mobile base," he said after a moment. "Something that can support fleet operations without relying on fixed facilities."
"We've considered that," Admiral Theron replied.
"But mobile shipyards require massive vessels, and we don't have the resources to build them."
"Who said anything about building?" Marcus turned to Lyra. "Your ship had biomechanical technology, right? Systems that could adapt and grow?" "Yes, but only to a limited extent. What if we could expand that principle? Create ships that could literally grow new components as needed?"
The room fell silent.
Finally, the Emperor spoke. "Elaborate."
Marcus moved to the tactical display and began sketching diagrams in the air with his finger.
"Human technology emphasizes modularity because we're always adapting existing systems for new purposes. Etherian technology emphasizes integration because you design everything from scratch." "Yes, but how does that help us? What if we combine both approaches?
Create a base design that could accept modules from any technology base, but integrate them using Etherian biomechanical principles."
Admiral Theron looked skeptical. "The engineering challenges would be enormous."
"So were the challenges of repairing your granddaughter's ship with human components," Marcus replied.
"But we made it work." Zara was studying his rough diagrams with growing excitement. "A hybrid technology approach.
Ships that could literally eat damaged enemy vessels and rebuild themselves with the materials. Or absorb new technologies from any source and integrate them seamlessly," Lyra added. The Emperor leaned forward in his throne.
"How long would such a project take?" Marcus thought carefully. "To prove the concept? Maybe 3 months. To build a prototype vessel? 6 months minimum. We may not have 6 months."
"Then, we'd better get started." The meeting continued late into the ship's night cycle, with Marcus sketching increasingly complex diagrams and the Etherian engineers raising increasingly technical objections. But, gradually, the skeptics were won over. The project would require resources from across the Empire, coordination between dozens of research facilities, and unprecedented cooperation between human and Etherian engineering teams. It was ambitious to the point of insanity. Which, as Marcus pointed out, was exactly why Vex would never see it coming. As the meeting finally broke up, the Emperor approached Marcus privately.
"You realize what you've committed yourself to? This project will make you a target for every enemy agent in the galaxy."
"I figured that out when I agreed to help," Marcus replied. "But someone needs to try impossible things.
Otherwise, they stay impossible forever." The Emperor smiled. "My granddaughters chose their savior well. Welcome to the Imperial cause, Marcus Chen.
As Marcus was shown to his guest quarters aboard the massive dreadnought, he looked out through the viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, Vex was consolidating his power and planning his next move. But, tomorrow, Marcus would begin work on something that might change the balance of the war entirely. A human mechanic's crazy idea that just might save an empire. He'd gone from fixing broken ships to building the future.
And, somehow, that felt exactly right. The research facility on Caridian Prime looked more like a cathedral than a laboratory.
Crystalline spires reached toward the sky, their surfaces alive with flowing patterns of light that represented data streams flowing between the research teams scattered across the complex.
Marcus stood in the main laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays showing the skeletal framework of what would become the first hybrid vessel.
3 months of intensive development had produced a design that existed nowhere else in the galaxy, a ship that could literally evolve. The biomechanical matrix is stable, reported Dr. Senna, the lead Etherian engineer on the project. Her pale blue skin had taken on a slight luminescent quality from working so closely with the biotech components. But, I'm still concerned about the integration protocols. Show me, Marcus said, moving to the primary display. The hologram expanded to show the vessel's core systems. At its heart was what they dubbed the integration engine, a hybrid of Etherian biotechnology and human modular engineering. The engine could analyze any technology it encountered, break it down to its fundamental principles, and incorporate those principles into the ship's existing systems.
The problem is selectivity, Dr. Senna explained. The engine wants to absorb everything. We're having trouble teaching it to distinguish between useful technology and random debris. Marcus studied the readouts. What if we approach it differently? Instead of trying to program restrictions, what if we give it preferences? Explain. Look at how human children learn.
They don't start with a list of rules about what's edible and what isn't. They start with preferences for sweet, salty, familiar flavors. Then, they expand based on experience. Dr. Senna's violet eyes lit up with understanding. Create a preference hierarchy based on energy efficiency, structural integrity, and compatibility metrics.
Exactly. Let the engine learn what makes good technology by starting with examples we know work.
They'd been having conversations like this for weeks, and Marcus had come to appreciate how differently humans and Etherians approached problems. The Etherian engineers were brilliant at creating elegant, integrated solutions. Human engineers were better at making incompatible systems work together through brute force and creative interpretation. The hybrid approach they were developing combined both philosophies, and the results were remarkable.
Speaking of learning, Dr. Senna said, we have another problem.
The prototype needs a test pilot, and none of our people can interface with the hybrid systems.
Marcus had been dreading this conversation.
The hybrid ship required a pilot who could think in both Etherian and human technological paradigms. Someone who understood the organic flow of biomechanical systems and the modular logic of human engineering.
I know what you're going to say, he said. Do you? Because I think you're the only person in the galaxy who might be able to pilot this thing. Before Marcus could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the facility.
Emergency lights bathed the laboratory in red, and automated voices announced a general alert.
All personnel to emergency stations. Hostile forces detected at system perimeter.
This is not a drill. Marcus and Dr. Senna exchanged grim looks. They both knew what this meant.
Vex had found them.
The facility's command center was in chaos when they arrived. Tactical displays showed 6 enemy vessels approaching at high speed, their design unfamiliar but clearly aggressive in configuration.
Identification confirms Void Syndicate markings, reported the duty officer.
Estimated time to engagement, 14 minutes. Admiral Theron materialized as a hologram from his flagship in orbit.
Marcus, how close is the prototype to operational status? Marcus looked at the displays showing the hybrid vessel. It was physically complete but untested.
The integration engine was online but unproven. The biomechanical systems were functioning but unstable.
Define operational, he said. Can it fly? Probably. Can it fight? I have no idea. Admiral Theron's expression was grim. That's going to have to be good enough. Our defense fleet is 3 ships. The attackers have 6, plus whatever reinforcements they might have following.
The facility director, an elderly Etherian named Master Jorik, stepped forward.
Admiral, I must protest. The hybrid vessel is not ready for combat. We need at least another month of testing.
We don't have another month, Admiral Theron replied. If the enemy captures or destroys this facility, the entire project is finished.
Marcus studied the tactical situation.
The enemy ships were approaching in a standard attack formation, clearly expecting to overwhelm the minimal defenses. They probably thought this was just another research facility, valuable but lightly defended.
What if we don't try to fight them?
Marcus said slowly.
Explain, Admiral Theron demanded.
The hybrid ship's main capability isn't weapons or armor.
It's adaptation. What if we use it to do something they're not expecting?
Before anyone could ask what he meant, Marcus was already running toward the hangar bays. Behind him, he could hear Dr. Senna shouting orders to her team.
Prep the prototype for launch. Emergency start-up sequence.
The hybrid vessel sat in the center of the main hangar like a sleeping predator. Its hull was a matte black that seemed to absorb light, broken by veins of bioluminescent material that pulsed with the ship's heartbeat. Unlike the elegant curves of traditional Etherian design or the angular functionality of human ships, the hybrid looked organic and mechanical at the same time. Marcus ran through the pre-flight checklist faster than any sane pilot should, but they were out of time for caution. The biomechanical systems responded to his touch, awakening with what felt almost like eagerness.
Integration engine online, Dr. Senna's voice came through the calm biomatrix stable. All systems showing green.
Define green, Marcus muttered as he felt the ship's systems link with his nervous system through the biomechanical interface.
It was unlike anything he'd ever experienced.
Instead of controlling the ship through mechanical interfaces, he felt like he was becoming part of it. The vessel's sensors became extensions of his own senses, and its systems responded to his thoughts as naturally as his own limbs. Launch when ready, came Admiral Theron's voice. Our defense ships are moving to intercept, but they won't last long. Marcus guided the hybrid ship out of the hangar and into space, marveling at how responsive it was. The biomechanical propulsion system was incredibly efficient, accelerating smoothly without the violent thrust of conventional engines. Through the ship's sensors, he could see the battle beginning. 3 Etherian defense vessels, elegant and deadly, were engaging 6 enemy ships that looked like they'd been cobbled together from spare parts and malevolent intent. The Void Syndicate ships were crude but effective, designed for intimidation as much as combat. They favored overwhelming firepower over elegance, and, in a straight fight, they would probably win through sheer weight of numbers.
But Marcus wasn't planning a straight fight. Dr. Senna, is the integration engine ready for field testing?
Marcus, we haven't even run laboratory tests on that system.
We have no idea what will happen if you try to absorb enemy technology. Then, I guess we're about to find out.
Marcus turned the hybrid ship toward the battle, but, instead of joining the engagement, he approached one of the enemy ships from an unexpected angle. The Syndicate vessel was focused on the Imperial defenders and didn't notice the strange black ship approaching from behind. Integration protocols active, Marcus announced, feeling the ship's systems shift into an entirely new configuration.
What happened next was unlike anything in the history of space combat. The hybrid ship's hull seemed to come alive, extending tendrils of biomechanical material that reached out toward the enemy vessel. Instead of attacking with weapons, the ship began to physically interface with its target. "What in the name of the void is that thing doing?" came a panicked transmission from the Syndicate ship. Marcus felt the integration engine analyzing the enemy vessel's systems, learning from its design, absorbing its technological principles. The crude but effective weapon systems, the brute force propulsion, the aggressive targeting computers, all of it was being cataloged and integrated. Integration complete, the ship's biomechanical voice whispered in his mind. New capabilities acquired.
Suddenly, Marcus had access to weapon systems that hadn't existed moments before. The ship had literally grown new armaments based on the technology it had absorbed, but refined through Etherian biomechanical principles. He turned toward the remaining enemy ships, and what they saw coming at them was no longer the untested prototype that had left the research facility. The hybrid vessel had evolved, incorporating the best aspects of Syndicate weapon technology while retaining its own superior propulsion and defensive capabilities. The battle that followed was unlike anything recorded in military history. The hybrid ship fought like a living thing, adapting its tactics and capabilities with each engagement. When faced with energy weapons, it developed better shields. When confronted with missile attacks, it grew point defense systems. When outnumbered, it absorbed disabled enemy ships and used their mass to create entirely new combat capabilities. Marcus, Admiral Theron's voice came through the calm. Whatever you're doing, it's working.
Enemy forces are in retreat.
But Marcus was barely listening. He was lost in the ship's systems, feeling every adaptation, every evolution. The hybrid vessel wasn't just a machine he was piloting, it was a partner, learning and growing with every moment of combat. When the last enemy ship fled the system, Marcus found himself alone in space with a vessel that was fundamentally different from the one he'd launched. The integration engine had processed technologies from 6 different ships, creating hybrid systems that were more than the sum of their parts.
Prototype returning to base, he announced, though he wasn't sure the ship qualified as a prototype anymore. The debriefing session that followed was unlike any in Imperial military history.
Marcus sat in the research facility's main conference room, surrounded by engineers, admirals, and scientists, all trying to understand what they'd witnessed.
The integration engine performed beyond all theoretical parameters, Dr. Senna reported. It didn't just absorb enemy technology, it improved on it.
The hybrid weapon systems it created are 30% more efficient than the originals.
Master Jorik studied the data with obvious amazement. The ship learned.
Not just processed new information, but actually learned and adapted based on experience. It's more than that, Marcus said quietly.
The ship isn't just adaptive, it's creative. During the battle, it developed solutions that weren't programmed into either human or Etherian technology. It created something entirely new. Admiral Theron leaned forward. What are you saying? I'm saying we didn't just build a hybrid ship. We built something that can think. The room fell silent as the implications sank in.
They'd created not just a new type of warship, but potentially a new form of artificial life. The question now, Emperor Valdris said, appearing as a hologram, is what we do with this discovery.
Marcus looked at the tactical displays showing the broader war.
Vex's forces were advancing on multiple fronts, and Imperial resistance was weakening.
Traditional military solutions weren't going to be enough.
We build more of them, Marcus said. Not identical copies, but ships based on the same principles. Each one designed to learn and adapt to different types of challenges.
How many could we build? The Emperor asked. With the resources available?
Maybe a dozen prototypes within 6 months.
That's not enough to turn the tide of the war. Marcus smiled. Your Majesty, with respect, you're thinking in traditional terms. We don't need to build enough ships to outnumber the enemy. We need to build ships that can outthink them. Over the next several hours, they developed a plan that would have seemed impossible just days before. Instead of building a large fleet of identical vessels, they would create a small fleet of unique hybrid ships, each one designed to excel in different aspects of warfare. Some would be optimized for intelligence gathering, able to infiltrate enemy systems and learn their weaknesses. Others would focus on logistics, capable of transforming raw materials into whatever the fleet needed. Still others would be pure combat vessels, designed to evolve new tactical capabilities in real time. It's ambitious, Admiral Theron admitted. But, if it works, it could change the nature of warfare itself. And, if it doesn't work? Master Jorik asked.
Marcus looked out through the facility's main viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, Vex was planning his next move, confident in his superior numbers and alien allies. If it doesn't work, we'll have tried something impossible and failed.
But, at least we'll have tried. The Emperor's hologram nodded slowly. Begin construction immediately. And, Marcus? Yes, Your Majesty? I want you to personally oversee the development of each ship. If they're going to be thinking vessels, they'll need someone who understands both the technology and the responsibility that comes with creating artificial life. As the meeting broke up and the teams dispersed to begin their work, Dr. Senna approached Marcus. You realize what this means, don't you? If these ships can truly think, truly learn, then we're not just building weapons. We're creating a new species. Marcus nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He'd gone from fixing broken ships to creating new forms of life. The universe had a sense of humor, if nothing else. Then, we'd better make sure we create them right, he said. The work ahead would be the most challenging of his life. But, as Marcus looked at the data streams flowing through the research facility, showing the hybrid ship's continued evolution even while docked, he felt a sense of anticipation rather than dread. They were about to change the galaxy forever. And, it all started with a human mechanic who believed impossible things were just problems that hadn't been solved yet. The Nexus shipyard floated in the void between stars, a massive construction platform built from salvaged asteroids and powered by stolen energy. It was one of 12 secret facilities scattered across Imperial space, each one dedicated to building the hybrid fleet that might save the Empire. Marcus floated in zero gravity at the center of the main construction bay, surrounded by 12 ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Each vessel was unique, shaped by its intended purpose and the specific technologies integrated into its design. The first ship, which they designated Phoenix, was the prototype Marcus had test-piloted. It had continued evolving even while docked, its hull now showing intricate patterns of biomechanical growth that resembled both circuitry and living tissue. Beside it hung Wraith, designed for stealth and intelligence gathering. Its hull seemed to shift and flow, adapting its camouflage to match whatever background it faced. Even now, it was difficult to look at directly, as if the ship existed slightly out of phase with reality. Titan was the largest of the hybrid vessels, built around a massive integration engine that could process entire enemy fleets. Its armored hull bristled with weapon systems that had been grown rather than manufactured, each one a unique fusion of human engineering and Etherian biotechnology. Final systems check complete, announced Dr. Senna's voice through the calm. All 12 vessels are showing optimal biomechanical integration. Marcus activated his personal maneuvering unit and drifted over to Oracle, a hybrid ship designed for tactical analysis and prediction. Its hull was covered in sensor arrays that looked more like crystalline flowers than technological instruments. What's their psychological state? Marcus asked. Dr. Senna appeared beside him, also using a maneuvering unit to navigate the zero-gravity environment. Over the past 6 months, she'd become more than just a colleague. She was one of the few people who truly understood what they'd created. That's still the strangest question I've ever been asked about starships, she said. But, based on their bioneural patterns, they seem eager. Curious about their purposes. Marcus nodded, studying Oracle's sensor arrays. Each hybrid ship had developed its own personality during construction, shaped by its intended function and the technologies integrated into its design. Phoenix was aggressive and protective. Wraith was curious and cautious. Titan was confident and straightforward. They weren't just ships anymore. They were individuals. Any word from the Emperor? Marcus asked. His fleet should arrive within the hour. And, Marcus, we've received some disturbing intelligence reports. How disturbing? Dr. Senna transmitted a data file to his personal display. What Marcus saw there made his blood run cold. Vex's forces had allied with something called the Devourer fleet, ancient warships from beyond the galaxy's edge that consumed entire civilizations. The Devourers aren't interested in conquest, Dr. Senna explained. They want to harvest all sentient life in this region of space. Vex has promised them the outer systems in exchange for helping him claim the Imperial core worlds. Marcus stared at the intelligence reports. The Devourer ships were massive, their technology based on principles that violated known physics.
If they succeeded in harvesting the galaxy's outer rim, they would become powerful enough to consume everything else. So it's not just about saving the Empire anymore, Marcus said quietly.
No. It's about saving everyone.
Before Marcus could respond, proximity alarms announced the arrival of the Imperial fleet. Through the shipyard's viewports, they could see dozens of Etherian warships emerging from hyperspace, their elegant hulls gleaming in the light of distant stars. The Emperor's flagship, Starfall, took position near the construction platform, and, within minutes, shuttles began arriving with the command staff who would oversee the hybrid fleet's first operational deployment. The briefing took place in the shipyard's main conference room, a utilitarian space that contrasted sharply with the organic beauty of the hybrid vessels visible through its windows. Emperor Valdris looked even more frail than the last time Marcus had seen him, but his eyes burned with desperate determination. The situation has deteriorated faster than we anticipated, the Emperor began. Vex's alliance with the Devourer fleet has given him resources we cannot match through conventional means.
Admiral Theron activated a galactic map showing the current state of the war.
Red zones indicated Vex territory, blue showed Imperial holdings, and ominous black-marked regions where the Devourer fleet had already struck. They're not just conquering systems, Admiral Theron explained.
They're sterilizing them.
Every world they take becomes a lifeless husk. Marcus studied the pattern of attacks. The Devourers were working systematically, establishing a perimeter around the galaxy's core before moving inward. It was the strategy of predators who wanted to prevent their prey from escaping.
What about the other galactic powers? Marcus asked.
The hegemony of Krix, the Saurian Republic, even the human colonial authority.
Are they just going to let this happen?
Most of them don't understand the true threat, the Emperor replied.
They see the Devourer attacks as isolated incidents.
By the time they realize what's happening, it may be too late.
Lyra and Zara entered the briefing room, now wearing the uniforms of Imperial Navy officers.
Over the months since their rescue, they'd trained as military commanders, determined to play active roles in defending their empire.
We've been in contact with several human colonies, Lyra reported.
Some of them are willing to form an alliance, but they want proof that the hybrid fleet can actually make a difference.
And they'll have that proof soon, Zara added, looking at Marcus with obvious confidence. Won't they?
Marcus felt the weight of expectation from everyone in the room.
The hybrid fleet represented months of desperate work and the Empire's last hope.
If it failed, there might not be a galaxy left to save. The ships are ready, Marcus said.
But I need to be honest about what we're facing.
The hybrid vessels are powerful and adaptive, but they're also individuals now. They can make their own decisions, including the decision not to fight.
You're saying they might refuse orders? Admiral Theron asked with obvious concern.
I'm saying they'll follow orders they believe in, from commanders they trust.
They're not machines anymore. Emperor Valdris considered this for a long moment.
Then, we must ensure they believe in our cause and trust our leadership.
Marcus, I want you to serve as fleet coordinator. You understand these vessels better than anyone. Your Majesty, I'm not a military officer.
I don't know fleet tactics or space combat doctrine.
You don't need to. You'll have Admiral Theron for strategy and the finest tactical officers in the Imperial Navy for implementation.
What you bring is understanding of how the hybrid ships think. The briefing continued for several more hours, covering intelligence reports, tactical assessments, and operational plans. When it finally ended, Marcus found himself standing alone in the observation deck, looking out at the hybrid fleet. The ships were beautiful in their alien way, each one a masterpiece of biomechanical engineering. But they were also powerful beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen.
In the right hands, they could save civilization. In the wrong hands, they could destroy it. Having second thoughts? Dr. Senna asked, joining him at the viewport.
Third and fourth thoughts, Marcus admitted.
We created something unprecedented. 12 artificial intelligences with the power to reshape reality. What if we got something wrong?
Then, we'll fix it, Dr. Senna said simply.
That's what engineers do.
Marcus smiled at her confidence. It was one of the things he'd come to appreciate about working with Etherian scientists. They approached problems with a calm certainty that solutions could always be found.
Dr. Senna.
Kira, Marcus said, using her personal name for the first time.
If something happens to me during the coming battle, I want you to take over as fleet coordinator. Nothing's going to happen to you. But, if it does.
Kira was quiet for a moment, studying the hybrid ships.
The fleet won't follow me the way they follow you. You're their creator, their teacher. They see you as. I'm not sure there's a word for it in either human or Etherian language. Parent? Marcus suggested. More than that. You're their introduction to what it means to be alive.
Before Marcus could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the shipyard.
Emergency lights bathed the observation deck in red, and automated voices announced an incoming transmission.
"This is urgent," came a voice over the comm system. "All senior staff to the command center immediately." The command center was in chaos when they arrived.
Tactical displays showed multiple hyperspace signatures approaching the system, and the sensor operators were struggling to identify the incoming vessels. "Report," Admiral Theron demanded. 12 ships, unknown configuration, the sensor chief announced. They're not matching any known Imperial or enemy signatures. Could they be Devourer vessels? Negative, sir. The energy patterns are completely different.
Marcus studied the sensor displays, and something about the approaching ship seemed familiar. The energy signatures were similar to the hybrid fleet, but more chaotic, less refined.
"Magnify the visual display," he ordered.
When the images appeared on the main screen, Marcus felt his heart sink. The approaching ships were clearly based on hybrid technology, but they were wrong somehow. Their hulls were scarred and twisted, and their biomechanical systems seemed to be fighting against themselves. "Those are hybrid ships," Dr. Senna said quietly.
"But how is that possible? We built the only ones."
"No," Marcus said grimly.
"We built the first ones. Someone else has been busy." Emperor Valdris appeared on the command center's communication screen.
"Analysis confirms that the approaching vessels are using hybrid technology."
"But who could have developed it?" "Vex," Admiral Theron said with certainty. "He must have captured some of our research data."
Marcus shook his head.
"This isn't Vex's work.
The construction is too sophisticated, and the biomechanical integration is too advanced. Someone with extensive knowledge of both human and Etherian technology built these." Before anyone could speculate further, a communication signal came from the approaching fleet. The face that appeared on the display was human, but scarred and augmented with obvious cybernetic implants. "Marcus Chen," the figure said in a voice distorted by electronic interference.
"My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez. I believe you know my work."
Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been one of humanity's most brilliant xenotechnologists until she disappeared 5 years ago during a research expedition beyond the galaxy's edge.
"Dr. Vasquez died in the Void Expedition," Marcus said. "Death is just another limitation to overcome," Vasquez replied.
"I've learned so much since leaving human space. The Devourers taught me things about biomechanical integration that your primitive research never discovered."
"You're working with them?" "Working with them? Marcus, I am them now.
I've integrated Devourer technology into my own body, and I've used that knowledge to create the perfect fusion of human, Etherian, and Devourer sciences." The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. If Vasquez had access to Devourer technology and knowledge of hybrid ship design, her vessels would be more advanced than anything they'd built. "The hybrid ships you've created are impressive," Vasquez continued. "But they're limited by your sentimental attachment to organic concepts like free will and individual consciousness. My ships are pure tools, optimized for their function without the weakness of personality." Through the shipyard sensors, Marcus could see Vasquez's hybrid ships moving into attack formation. They moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single organism rather than individual vessels.
You have one chance to surrender, Vasquez announced. Join us willingly, and your knowledge will be preserved as part of the collective. Resist, and we'll simply take what we need from your wreckage. The communication cut off, leaving the command center in tense silence. Orders, sir? Admiral Theron asked the Emperor. Before Emperor Valdris could respond, Marcus was already moving toward the hangar bay. I'm taking Phoenix out. The fleet will follow my lead. Marcus, wait, Kara called after him. Those ships are more advanced than ours. You can't fight them alone. I'm not alone, Marcus replied. I have 12 partners who believe in what we're fighting for. The launch sequence for the hybrid fleet was unlike anything in military history. Instead of following rigid protocols, each ship awakened at its own pace, their biomechanical systems coming online like living creatures stirring from sleep. Phoenix was first, responding to Marcus's presence with what felt like eager anticipation. As he settled into the pilot interface, he felt the ship's personality merging with his own consciousness. Ready for whatever comes, Phoenix whispered in his mind. One by one, the other hybrid ships came online, each one checking in with its own distinct voice and personality. Wraith was cautious but determined. Titan was confident and aggressive. Oracle was analytical but optimistic. They were a family, Marcus realized. 12 artificial beings who trusted each other and their human creator. Hybrid fleet, this is Phoenix Actual, Marcus announced over the comm. We're facing an enemy that wants to strip away everything that makes us who we are. They see consciousness and individuality as weaknesses to be eliminated. Let's show them how wrong they are. Titan's voice rumbled through the calm. The battle that followed would be remembered as the moment when artificial intelligence truly came alive. The hybrid fleet didn't just fight Vasquez's collective ships, they outthought them, outadapted them, and ultimately outimagined them. Where Vasquez's ships moved in perfect but predictable coordination, the hybrid fleet fought with chaotic creativity. Each ship developed unique tactics in real time, sharing discoveries with the others while maintaining their individual fighting styles. Phoenix danced through enemy fire, its hull shifting and adapting to create new weapon systems with each engagement. Wraith disappeared from sensors entirely, striking from impossible angles before fading back into stealth. Oracle coordinated the fleet's movements while simultaneously analyzing enemy weaknesses and predicting their tactics. The battle raged for hours, spreading throughout the star system as both fleets maneuvered for advantage. But, gradually, it became clear that consciousness and creativity were proving superior to mere coordination and efficiency. This is impossible, Vasquez's voice came over the comm, her electronic comm finally showing cracks. Collective efficiency should overcome individual chaos. That's the difference between us, Marcus replied as Phoenix absorbed and improved upon enemy weapon technology. You see individuality as chaos. We see it as strength. One by one, Vasquez's ships began to fall. Without individual consciousness to drive adaptation and innovation, they couldn't match the hybrid fleet's creative responses to changing battle conditions. When the last enemy ship was disabled, Vasquez herself appeared on Phoenix's communication screen. Her cybernetic augmentations were sparking, and her human features were barely visible beneath the technological modifications. You've won this engagement, she said bitterly. But the Devourer fleet is vast. They will come, and, when they do, your precious individuality will be consumed along with everything else. Maybe, Marcus said. But, we'll face them as ourselves, not as slaves to someone else's vision of perfection. The communication cut off as Vasquez's damaged ship limped away into hyperspace. Around Phoenix, the hybrid fleet regrouped, each ship glowing with the satisfaction of victory. Phoenix Actual, this is Oracle, came the analytical ship's voice. I've been monitoring communications from across the galaxy. News of our victory is spreading. Other species are asking questions about the hybrid technology. Good, Marcus replied. It's time the galaxy learned that consciousness isn't a weakness to be overcome. It's a strength to be celebrated. As the hybrid fleet returned to the shipyard, Marcus felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything in his life. They'd not only won a battle, but proved a point about the value of individual consciousness and creativity. the real war was still ahead of them. Vex and the Devourer fleet remained threats to galactic civilization.
But, for the first time since the crisis began, Marcus felt genuinely hopeful about their chances. They'd created something unprecedented, artificial beings who chose to fight not because they were programmed to, but because they believed in the cause. And that, Marcus realized, might make all the difference.
The Galactic Assembly had never seen anything like it.
Representatives from dozens of species packed the great amphitheater on Concordia Station, their voices raised in heated debate as Marcus Chen stood at the central podium.
Above them, holographic displays showed the advancing Devourer fleet, now only weeks away from the galaxy's core systems.
Honorable delegates, Marcus began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber, we've shown you the combat footage. We've shared our intelligence on the Devourer threat. We've even demonstrated how hybrid technology can be adapted to your existing fleets.
The question now is simple, will you stand together, or will you fall separately? The Saurian representative, a massive reptilian being named Warlord Krex, rose from his delegations section.
Human Shen, your hybrid vessels are impressive, but the Saurian Republic has defended itself for millennia without alien assistance.
We do not bow to threats, even from beyond the galaxy's edge.
Murmurs of agreement rippled through several delegations.
The hegemony of Krix, the Altarian collective, even some of the human colonial representatives seemed skeptical of the alliance Marcus was proposing.
Warlord Krex, Marcus replied, with respect, the Devourer fleet isn't interested in conquest. They want to harvest every living thing in this galaxy. There won't be a Saurian Republic to defend if they succeed.
Then, we die with honor, Krex declared.
Better that than to submit to some untested alliance led by a backwater species. The chamber erupted in arguments as different factions shouted their positions. Marcus watched the chaos with growing frustration. Even with the evidence of the Devourer threat, species prejudice and political pride were preventing the cooperation they desperately needed.
Emperor Valdris, now appearing as a hologram due to his deteriorating health, raised his hand for silence.
Delegates, I have ruled the Etherian Empire for over 2 centuries. I have seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. But, I have never seen a threat like this one. His words carried weight, and the chamber gradually quieted. The human Marcus Chen saved my granddaughters when my own people failed them.
He developed technology that my finest engineers said was impossible.
And he has proven that cooperation between species can achieve what none of us could accomplish alone. The Emperor's image turned to face Marcus. I formally propose that Marcus Chen be appointed as Supreme Commander of the Allied Defense Fleet, with authority to coordinate all military forces against the Devourer threat. The chamber exploded again, but this time the arguments were more focused. Some delegates supported the proposal, while others objected to putting a human in charge of galactic defense. This is preposterous, declared the Altarian representative, her crystalline form flashing with indignation. Humans are a primitive species barely capable of interstellar travel.
How can we trust